Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode in season three of Be the Thermostat and Not the Thermometer, where we are looking to impact your thermostat. And I am so excited for today. It has been a working in progress, and I have a special treat for you today. We have Dr. Rachael Mahmood, the 2024 Illinois Teacher of the Year. Wah, 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 wah. I'm so excited. Hey, Dr. Mahmood, introduce yourself to our audience. Tell them, where you're teaching at, what you were teaching, and kind of what you're doing right now.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I think that is the most amazing introduction I've ever received. I just started off my podcast experience with you with a big smile. My name is Dr. Rachael Mahmood. I am a elementary school teacher at Indian Prairie School District 204. I've historically taught fourth and fifth grade. However, this year I am on a 1 year paid sabbatical. Thank you, Illinois State Board of Education,
Yes.
traveling around as the 2024 Illinois Teacher of the Year. And my job, I guess you could say this year, is to inspire, elevate, and bring together educators in spaces that help them to just feel incredibly affirmed in the great work they do every single day in our classrooms for our most wonderful little ones that are
Yeah.
under our care.
Awesome. Awesome. So let me just start off by saying congratulations. It is oftentimes that people don't get their roses while they still can smell them. And I'm so glad that someone was like, you know what? We need to put your name in because from what I hear and now what I have seen is that you're doing amazing things, not only in the classroom, but impacting the state of education. And we need people like you. We need your voice. And so I'm so glad to have it here. So I want to start out with, and I gave you a list of questions, but I got the opportunity to meet you at the Illinois Title I Directors Conference. And I had heard about Dr. Mahmood. And so when I got to hear your story and then experience the World Cafe with you, my mind was blown. The conversations that we were able to have, the opportunity to think with others, and I get to present, and I presented nationally and done workshops and do presenting and facilitating things. And I added a repertoire to my tool belt that was so amazing. So I don't want to miss the opportunity to capture that. So I want us to just start out of saying during this Title I conference, we had speakers, but Dr. Rachael Mahmood came in and she had us walk through the World Cafe. Will you take a little bit of time to explain to my audience what the World Cafe is?
Absolutely. So, as the 2024 Illinois Teacher of the Year, my job is really to represent educators, to represent their voices, their experiences, to help elevate those things. So, when I was thinking about how could I potentially help to elevate educators and their voices in spaces where decisions are being made about them and affirm the great work they do, I was thinking about when people invite me out, what do I want that space to look like? And I think everyone is used to the teacher of the year giving like an inspirational keynote. So I
Yes.
definitely wanted to ground whatever I do in some type of keynote that has a strong message. But at the same time, I wanted to leave space for educators to connect with each other and to
Mm.
elevate their voice. So, about 15 years ago in my school district, Indian Prairie School District 204, we started to use the World Cafe model to bring together stakeholders across our district in conversations about how to improve our schools. And the World Cafe model is an open source free dialogue toolkit that's available to anyone, educators included, on their website, theworldcafe.com. And you can download a how to toolkit there and
Yes.
host a World Cafe for your community. And so it's built on the premise that the people in the discussion who are facing some type of issue in their
Mhm.
community have the knowledge, the wisdom, the voice, and the agency to solve that issue. All we need is a model to help draw those stories and that expertise out of them. So, in the World Cafe model, we organize participants in a very large group or in a small group into even smaller discussion groups. And in these discussion groups, we ask them key questions around a central context that helps them to generate their experiences, their ideas, their wisdom, their insights, and then help move them from those stories and those experiences and those ideas
Mm-hmm.
to action.
Yeah.
And that is really the goal of the World Cafe, is to move them to action
Yes.
in that process. And so one of the things that's unique about a World Cafe is that they're not just having dialogue with each other in these small groups, but
Mm-hmm.
also that after a set amount of time, all the groups stand up and switch tables with each other, and then they sit down and continue the conversation.
Yes.
Then they stand up, they switch tables, they continue the conversation, all while capturing notes and ideas on their tablecloths, or in this case, we used Anchor chart paper to ground the conversation, and that
Mm-hmm.
creates a cross pollination of ideas across a room. And it's through that cross pollination that we start to see patterns emerge. And from
Yes.
those patterns, key insights. And then from those insights, develop actionable things that we can do in our community to solve the issue at hand.
Oh, man. And so you guys are listening and you're hearing that. And so being inspired by doing it, like we had the opportunity to talk about Title I funds and like what could we do with those Title I funds to truly make an impact on students' learning, student achievement, and not just talking about a problem, but we talked about the hurdles, talked about the challenges, we talked about how we can solve those challenges and what will be. And then like those that information was given then to the associations who use for planning and whatever. And I was so inspired by this, not only by the conversations, but during this time, like you said, when we moved, most of the time it's like a scoot, right? Like for my elementary teachers, you scoot, right? Like scoot, and you go from one table to the next, and you're with that same group. But in this scoot, it's a scoot and mix, right? So it's like scoot, mix, and you're mixing up your group. So you're not staying with the same people. So then you're taking the collective knowledge that you built from one session to another session, and everybody has the same background knowledge of the question, but a different collective knowledge that you bring together. And just that power of that has changed so much for me when it talked about discussion and dialogue. And this is at a large scale or a small scale. It was such an amazing opportunity of learning for me. And thank you for allowing me to experience that. Thank you for utilizing your current platform to not only inspire, but to make an impact. And when you talk about that impact, I reference that as being the thermostat and not the thermometer. So you could have just been the thermometer and said, hey, here's the state of education, and just talk about that. But instead, you chose to be the thermostat and take your platform to using that to make a change and a difference with information, with research, with action, I mean, all of it wrapped as one. So my question I have for you is, why is it important for you to use this platform to be the thermostat, to not only just talk about what education is, but to make an impact on the state of education?
So for me, and what I talk a lot about in that beginning keynote portion is, as a student, I never felt a sense of belonging in my school. I come from multiple minoritized faiths, multiple minoritized cultures, races, religions, and growing up, I just never seemed to fit in as a student in
Mm,
school. And that led me down a very challenging path as a young adult. And we know how important it is for students to feel connected to
yes.
their school. And we know that students bring trauma into our school. But what we don't talk enough about is how schools can help further traumatize students, and
Wow.
how very well intentioned, loving educators and loving people in our schools can still be part of a system that teaches students unintentional lessons
Mm,
about their identities and who they are in this world.
mm,
And so belonging is really the reason why we do so many steps towards inclusion. Why do we have affinity spaces? Why do we talk about culturally responsive teaching practices? Why do we want more engagement? All of these things lead to belonging. When students feel belonging, they do better in school, social emotionally, as well as academically. When teachers feel belonging, they stay in their jobs. We
Mm,
retain them in our professions.
mm.
When families feel belonging in our schools, we get higher ratings and like
Yes.
more satisfaction from our community that our schools are serving our community in the ways that our families dream that they should. So belonging is really the central piece for me as what we need to explore across all of our schools. And
Mhm.
really, if you think about it, there's a lot of things that can really divide us right now in education, or really at any time. There's lots of issues that can divide
Right.
people, but one issue that will always unite people is that every person who walks through our school doors wants to feel a sense of belonging in our schools. But the problem becomes, what does belonging mean?
Hmm.
Belonging lives in the hearts of people. We can't use some textbook definition to define belonging because it's in my heart. I have
Hmm.
to feel it. It's my feeling. So we need to go to our community and ask them, what does belonging mean to you?
Yes.
And so, in that World Cafe model, that became very important to me. The first round of questions is, how do we define belonging? What does
Yeah.
that mean? What does that look like for students, staff, and families in our schools? And then that second round, where are we landing? What are our strengths? What are we doing well? What do we want our schools to keep doing?
Hmm.
And then that third round of questioning, what are the challenges? What are the hiccups? What are the roadblocks? What are the barriers to ensuring that every person who walks through our doors feels that sense of belonging?
Yes.
And then finally, what action steps do we want school districts to take, ourselves to take, our families to take to increase belonging in our schools? Because truly, because belonging lives in our hearts and we have to
Yes.
choose to feel it, it really takes each and every one of us to shape what it means and
Mm.
how to get there. Because
Mm.
at the end of the day, it has to land, that feeling has to land in who we are. So
Yes.
we all have to be part of the process of defining it. We have to be the process of identifying the roadblocks and barriers. And we also have to be part of the process in solving it. And that's really where the World Cafe model can help us do that.
Yeah.
It can help us get to that point, and then sharing that data back with school districts and saying, this is what your community wants. This is what your community feels. This is
Hmm.
what your community measures as success. This is what your community loves that you're doing.
Hmm.
This is what your community wishes you would do.
Uh,
Being transparent in that
Powerful.
process and building it with each other is incredibly special. And if a district takes that data back and
Hmm.
they center the voices of the people in their school districts, the stakeholders in that process, they
Hmm.
will land. They will land.
Hmm. Mm. That is so powerful. Like that whole process and getting that information, like people talk about culture and they talk about a culture of belonging and what they believe it means. But you said something in there is like culture belonging is not a textbook thing. Like it's a living, breathing, feeling. Like you can walk in a building and be like, people feel like they belong here based how they greet you, based how they talk, ways the kids walking. Like you see that. And I look at culture, and particularly culture belonging, is like the soil for which everything else is cultivated in. Right? Like a culture belonging. If you have a great culture belonging for your staff, then they're gonna want to grow and learn and be a part of your PTO and your after school events and all those different things and get to know those kids so the kids feel that same belonging. If you have your kids who feel like they belong, they're going to want to be engaged in activities. They're going to learn harder. They're going to pay more attention. Your discipline will be down and your achievement will be up. And then your parents will feel like they belong because their kids feel like them. I mean, it's such a ripple effect that then happens. But then my belief is that if we create that strong belonging in a school within a community, and their parents feel like they belong, then that spreads out into the community. And that community starts wanting to create that same level of belonging that they're feeling from their kids in their school with that community. Because if it's happening in the school, then it can happen as a community as a whole. Then that changes the region, then it changes the state, then we can change the world. Is my belief. And it's all about that
Woo!
whole that culture and that soil for which we cultivate right here in our school.
Absolutely,
So thank
absolutely. And
you.
I think across the state of Illinois, we're, while we have a very diverse student population, educator population, and diverse needs across all of the regions, again, what unites us is
Yes.
that need to feel like we belong. And so not only as I travel across the state doing these World Cafes with these individual organizations and individual school districts,
Hmm.
and I'm doing it with pre-service teachers as
Yeah.
well as we collect that data across the state, layering that data from each district, from each
Hmm.
school, from each stakeholder on top of each other, we can paint a picture of what it means to feel belonging in our schools across Illinois. And so we can answer some larger questions while also answering some smaller questions,
Yes.
tailoring the answers to each individual community, but yet finding that thread that
Yes.
weaves through the entire picture of what our schools are, how they're able to accomplish these feelings in the hearts of people, in the hearts of their students and their educators, and what they can do in order to get there.
Wow. I'm excited. I'm excited for this journey that you're on. I'm excited about that information. I'm excited to read and get the research for which you'll be collecting to talk about what that looks like as a state, because I think we could use that to truly make the state of Illinois a place where people want to become educators, and we can get retention and recruitment all based off of right here what you're doing. So again, thank you for utilizing that platform, because man, it's going to impact so many places and so many thermostats to allow for them to stop just being the thermometer and talking about the problem, but actually getting solutions to the problem. So let's so as you think about this, talk to me. How many years have you been in this thing called education?
I've been in education 2 decades, which I know is shocking. So it looks like I'm only
Right,
26.
me too. So
Uh,
listen,
but yes, this is my 20th year in education,
yes.
and just really has been quite the ride.
Huh?
I feel like when we were younger, the teachers would say to us, "Oh, wait till you've done this for 20 years," and
Uh-huh.
now, like being at that space where I'm like 2 decades in, I'm the one that's saying, "Oh, yeah, like, I've seen the trends,
Yes.
I've
Yes.
seen the way education is going, the ways we've improved, the ways we
Mm-hmm.
may have slipped back a
Missed
little
the mark.
bit
Yes. Yep.
from
Yep.
when we've started. So just a really unique perspective, being 2 decades in, having still one more decade of service to give, and thinking about how I'm going to carry forward this knowledge and insight, not only
Yes.
from the last 2 decades, but from this phenomenal year of service into that next decade as an educator.
Man, I love that. So, over your 2 decades of experience of doing this thing, education, of making kids' future brighter tomorrow than it is today, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
You know, that's a really hard one because I feel like there's so much good advice out there.
Hmm.
But I do feel like something that I feel very strongly about is, how do we bring our passions to work with us every day? How do we lead with our heart
Hmm.
in the classroom? I do believe that when you unpack your why story of why you became a teacher, why you're in this work, when you let that why guide you in who, which colleagues and who you connect with at work, and the decisions that you make about students, in
Hmm.
how you choose to grow as a teacher leader. I
Yes.
do feel like having a strong sense of why fires me up instead of burning me out.
Yep.
I think
Man.
about being 2 decades in. Why am I still so fired up? Why am I still so passionate about what I do? Why am I not going home tired at the end of the day, but instead fired up and excited and about all the things going on. And I really think that having a strong sense of why I'm doing this work has really grounded me in
Yes.
this space. I know what type of teacher I want to be. I want to be the type that validates and affirms students' identities in the classroom, whether that be their culture, their learning styles,
Mhm.
their abilities, their gifts. I want to see students for the gifts they bring. Every student is a gift to our classroom, even their quirky behaviors, which can sometimes, get underneath our skin and make our days challenging. They're a gift. I mean, I
It
was a
is.
kid who never stopped talking. I
Hmm.
was a kid who walked around the classroom constantly checking in with other kids. I was a kid who would capture the attention of my entire class with some witty off task comment that
Hmm.
I'm sure would drive my teachers bananas.
Yes.
But now I get paid to talk all day long in school, to circle a classroom. I'm an engaged teacher that's
Yes.
constantly rounding. And my witty comments, my students love them.
Hmm.
They think that I'm such an engaging teacher because I always have a witty way of explaining something or drawing the
Yes.
attention of our class back to something. And so I think about all of those problem behaviors I had as a student were in fact gifts.
Yeah.
They were gifts to the type of person I was. And I think about how we are centering our students' gifts in the classroom, how we're helping them discover them, how we're helping them to just truly embrace who they are.
Mhm.
That's really the drive for the type of teacher I want to be. And I know that. So on those tough days when I'm facing some of those tough behaviors or, some of that quirkiness that can feel a little overwhelming or some of the challenges in our school system, I think back to my why. Like, I'm the
Mhm.
teacher here to tell them, like, you are a gift to our classroom and to our community. We're going to help you utilize all of your gifts for positive action in our community, in our classroom. We're going to validate and affirm the person you are. You are
Mhm.
exactly who you need to be, and you will absolutely be successful in and outside of our classroom
Right.
when you lean into who you are because you are an amazing student and person. And I think that is what helps me get through those days.
Yes. Man, I say your purpose remains when your passion wanes,
That
right?
is true.
Your passions ebb and flow, latest phone, whatever comes, this techno, but your purpose, your why remains the same. And that purpose and that why is the driving force for this longevity, for your impact, for you to understand what this thing called education truly is and understanding that where we are. So I wanted to give you this opportunity that I'm a John Maxwell leadership coach. And in John Maxwell's book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, he quotes David McClellan of saying, the people that you habitually hang out with is called your reference group. And these people determine as much as 95% of your success. The other way I've heard this talked about is your circle of five. If you look at the five closest friends that you have, that's how high you will fly based off the five friends that you allow into your inner circle. So we want to improve people's thermostat here. We want to help them fly high by following or watching people that are making a huge impact in education from your lens. Who are some people that you believe others can learn from and grow from based off of your experience?
So are these like my inner circle people, or are these like people that are in the space that I like look up to as far as like,
Yeah, so these would be
leaders
like
already in this area?
educators that are in the space or anyone who's in the space that is motivating you to help you grow, pushing you to be better, that you follow, that these are people that other people could lean and grow from.
All right. Well, first, I got to give a shout out to my one and true mentor, somebody who saw a spark in me as a teacher that was just striving to be a leader. She is Dr. Jennifer Rowe, and she is the director of equity and belonging at Lyons Township High School. And she is such a powerhouse, amazing woman leader, just doing fabulous things at Lyons Township High School, as well as she used to be the equity director in my school district, Indian Prairie School District 204. Just a person who knows how to lead other people towards being
Mhm.
their best self, centers students, centers their experiences, is constantly in service to people. So she would be, just one of my biggest muses and mentors and inspirations. So
Hmm.
I definitely want to give a shout out to her, as well as one of my, we call her baby teacher because she's so much younger than us. She probably wouldn't like the fact I said that on a podcast because she is nearly 30 years old. But Tyler Hunt, who has been my colleague for the last 5 or 6 years, she's up and coming. She is turning up the heat. She is a
Yes.
leader. She was a Teach Plus senior fellow. She's done a
Nice.
lot of work in with the Racism Free School Act and in that space in Illinois. She's at Harvard right now on a 1 year sabbatical,
Oh, wow.
studying social justice and education, and just absolutely, she's coming in hot. I've told her she's always looking up to me, but I'm like, man, if I was where you were at when I was 30, like,
Man.
oh my
Woo.
gosh, not even
Love
30.
it.
She's coming up hot. And then I was just thinking about, like, professionally speaking, I'm a big fan of Jennifer Gonzalez's Cult of Pedagogy podcast. I don't know if I can
Yes.
mention other
Yes,
podcasts on
please
here,
do.
but a couple of her, I just love the way she picks her topics, the way she talks about education. I feel like when I want to get fired up for something, I always try to see, like, is there a Cult of Pedagogy podcast on this
Mhm.
topic? Two that I would shout out, the one on semantic pulse surveys was a great one. I love that idea of constantly checking in with staff. I think that was episode 230. How do we constantly check in? I talk a lot about, you know, we are taking all these steps towards inclusion, and they're great and necessary steps. And those are things we're checking off, right?
Mhm.
But we need to also be checking in with people to see that those steps are landing,
Yeah.
and how important it is to balance our checkoffs with our check-ins to make sure that all those well-intentioned things we're doing are changing the hearts of people and
Mhm.
are improving their experiences in school. And so, around that idea, I think too, like, I'm a big street data person. So, giving a shout out to the authors of street data as well. How are we collecting information from people, checking in with them, and centering their experiences, their humanity in these spaces so that we know that the steps we're taking are meaningful and impactful and all of those things. I don't know if that was five. I'm trying young. We need to follow.
Whatever.
We need to be the thermostat, not the thermometer, definitely. But just so many great people. I think it's important to have a balance, right? A balance of the
Yes.
people that are close to your heart. They
Yep.
inspire you every day. You get up, you
For
call them when
sure.
good things happen, you lean
Yes.
into them for advice. They help guide you along the way, but also the people that, like, we aspire to be in these big spaces,
Yeah.
as well. And
Awesome.
so I think that, having that balance of people in our lives kind of help us to grow and stay grounded.
That's man, I truly appreciate that because you are absolutely right. And I love the perspective for which you bring. I love the grounding that you have, right? Like grounding in like you know who you are as an educator and you know where you want to go, but you also are not afraid. And a lot of times we do that of like, let's give people, I said that they're roses when they're there. So you mentioning Dr. Rowe and Tyler and like that's important, and I absolutely love that. And thank you for modeling that for us, right? Like as teachers, it is not about it's not a competition. That's why I was like, yes, code pedagogy, I absolutely love. I use some of the stuff as a principal. Now I'm assistant superintendent, and I still like that. I am all about that because at the end of the day, it's about helping us become better educators so we can help our kids to have a brighter future, right? And so I truly appreciate that. All right, Dr. Mahmood, will you tell us if somebody wants to see you live and in person outside of the iGrow Summit in June 2025, coming up as our keynote speaker for the iGrow Summit to grow, retain, recruit more teachers and leaders of color. That's a shameless plug, but we got her as a keynote speaker. Where can they see you, follow you on social media? Give us that information.
Absolutely. So I do also run a small consulting business called Equity Teacher Leader. You can follow me under most social media handles, YouTube, LinkedIn, even a little bit of TikTok. At
Yeah,
Equity Teacher
okay.
Leader. I got your short reels to help boost your classroom expertise. But at Equity Teacher Leader is the handle, as well as at equityteacherleader.com. The reason it's at Equity Teacher Leader is because every person can be an equity leader right from their classroom. The
Excellent.
practices that you do in your classroom, the way you view your students, what and how you teach, how you advocate, everyone can be an equity leader from the classroom. You don't need a fancy position. You don't need a title. You don't need anything but a whole bunch of heart and love for your kids. We all need to be equity teacher leaders. And so that is my future there. I'm also hoping one day to start a podcast. So I'm going to have to
Do it
tap you in on some
for
advice. You're all
sure.
about lifting us up.
Let's
I'm going
do
to need
it.
your advice in that space too. So I guess keep checking back to your podcast channels because
That's
the At Equity Teacher Leader podcast is going to be dropping soon,
let's
right after I
go.
get some advice from you on how
I
to get
love
it
it. I
started.
absolutely love it, man. Hey, this has been such a fun conversation. This is a start of many. You are now in my old school Rolodex, as they used to call it, where you are going to be that lifeline. I am so excited for the work that you're doing. I'm excited for the impact that you're having, and I'm loving the thermostat that you're setting. I always like to end it with this. Ladies and gentlemen, know that you are making a difference. You are the right person in the right spot at the right time. Now's the time to help our kids tomorrow be brighter than they're today. And remember, you have to oftentimes do the things that other people do not think to do to get the results that other people are not able to get. Dr. Rachael Mahmood, thank you so very much for joining us on this episode of Be the Thermostat and Not the Thermometer. And ladies and gentlemen, always remember, have a great day.